What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Signature Sip, where we sip and talk real estate. I got someone here named what? What's your name? I have Melissa Gonzales here with me. She's one of our agents, one of our top producing agents. And today we're going to be talking about something that every New Jersey resident, especially if you're a homeowner, is talking about now, which is the new mansion tax. How much about it do you know, by the way?
A lot.
Yeah? What's a lot?
I know all about it.
Okay. So just to give you guys context, like in the past, prior to this new proposal going into effect, which goes into effect in a couple of days, July 10 of this year, there was already a mansion tax in which the buyer was financially responsible for paying 1% of the sales price from $1 million and above, right? So if you had a buyer and they were buying a home for, let's say, $1.5 million, in addition to all their closing costs, they also incurred a 1% mansion tax, which would be equivalent to $15,000. And the seller would only be financially obligated to pay what?
The commission.
The realty transfer fee, along with other closing costs, obviously, the commission, and a couple of other things, right? So seller paid the realty transfer fee, which is a little less than 1%, and then the buyer pays the mansion tax. Well, Governor Murphy, as of March, put in front of the State Budget Committee a proposal to increase the mansion tax, and they actually passed it. And we'll talk about the fee schedule in a little bit, but now they shifted the financial obligation from the buyer now to the seller, which I'm not so against, to be quite honest with you. My
No, I agree with you there.
right? I don't think that the buyer should be taxed on purchasing a property for $1 million plus. Now, this applies for not just residential sales. This applies for commercial. So residential, 1 to 4 units, and commercial properties above $1 million. Now, one of the biggest changes, right? The mansion tax received a facelift, which now it's based on a fee schedule, which I have right here on my phone. Let's talk about this fee schedule, because this is pretty interesting. This is where people got a little shocked, right? So it's based on a graduated fee structure. So from $1 million to $2 million, the seller now is responsible for a mansion tax of 1%, which, by the way, is supplemental to the realty transfer fee. Mm-hmm. Seller is still responsible for the realty transfer fee, which is on a graduated scale as well. And now they're responsible for the mansion tax. So from $1 million to $2 million, 1%. If you are purchasing a property from $2 million to $2.5 million, it's 2%. From $2.5 to $3 million, it's 2.5%. From $3 to $3.5 million, it's 3%. And any real property above $3.5 million or $3.5 million or higher, it is 3.5%. Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, look, the state has a deficit. They needed to put this in process in order for them to generate revenue. They think that they can generate as much as $317 million in revenue to cover the deficit that is expected this coming year, right? So what are your thoughts as let's say, wear the seller hat for a second here, right? Because I know you're obviously selling your property right now. Mm-hmm. Almost close to
closing, yep.
Threshold, right? That $1 million threshold. What are your thoughts as a seller? Not as a real estate agent, but as a seller. And I'll kind of give my thoughts as the real estate agent.
Yeah.
So if you're a seller and you find out about this mansion tax that now you're financially obligated, what's your reaction?
I mean, my initial reaction is that that's a lot of money, right?
That's back pocket money for you.
No, that's a lot of money, right? And remember, anybody who's going to sell their house, right? I know you said as a seller, but also I'll just give you my perspective, right? Like when I go on listing appointments, sellers always ask, "What are my closing costs?"
And you go on a lot of listing appointments, probably like what, 10 a month?
Yeah,
roughly.
Yeah. So they always ask that question: "What are my closing costs?" So now to go in there and say, okay, you are, responsible for paying my commission, realty transfer tax. And now, because your home is quote unquote a mansion, which, let's be honest, $1 million and most of New Jersey does not get you a mansion, right?
Yeah, I think there was an article on NJ.com or Patch in which the median price of 87 towns in New Jersey right now is $1 million.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Like,
yeah, you're not going to get much there.
No, $1 million doesn't get you a mansion. Back in 2004, when they made this change where they had the buyers pay the mansion tax, in 2004, we would agree.
Yeah, if you bought $1 million property, you were buying like a 7,000 square foot property then. Today, it's a little bit different.
Right. So,
And just to touch off of what you said, not to get off sidetrack, but like, I'll equate it like, Cranford's a strong blue collar, middle class area, right? Right now in Cranford, for $1 million, you're either going to get a brand new townhouse or a townhouse that's 1, 2, 3 years old, or you're getting a 3-bedroom colonial style home that's probably about 40 years old, just to give people perspective.
Right.
And it's not Cranford's not a wealthy town, right?
Correct.
It's not an affluent town, right? So go ahead.
Yeah. And similar to my town, right? Like, I mean, I'm not that far off from selling
all
my
of Bergen
house.
County for $1 million, you're really not getting much. Right.
So in any event, okay, so now, if I'm listening to my agent and they're telling me, okay, you have, commission, which is X amount, realty transfer tax. Oh, and by the way, because your property is worth $2 million or higher, right? You're going to have to pay a 2% tax as well. And I thought about this too, and again, kind of
and ethically, you have to let them know. In
of
fact,
course.
I think there's going to be a disclosure form,
an addendum
that listing agents have to get their seller to sign so that they are aware of this extra fee.
That's a lot of money off the top. But play this scenario out, because I actually was having a conversation with somebody. I said, imagine this. Imagine you're a seller in New Jersey right now, and let's say you are moving to South Carolina, okay? And let's say that you have a $2.5 million home, $2.6 million home, and you're moving to South Carolina. Now, not only do you have the commissions, the realty transfer tax.
I know where you're going with this.
The realty transfer tax, the mansion tax, but now I have to also pay, which was not now, it's always, but just include this in fees, is the exit tax, which we know is not really a tax. It's technically a withholding, right? But all that money is getting deducted from the purchase price, right?
Yeah, it's cutting away from net proceeds.
Correct. And that's a lot of money.
But let me ask you this. So as a seller, don't you think that if you're having a conversation with the real estate agent where you're really focused on your net proceeds, right? What am I going to walk away with once I'm done selling my property? Do you think that sellers and real estate agents are going to put some of this financial onus on the buyer?
It's a possibility, but I do think that I think a couple of things may happen. And again, I could be wrong, but this is just...
You're wrong in many cases.
No, this is just what I think.
She's wrong 9 out of 10 times, Joe.
No, I'm not. Clearly not. So I think a couple of things are going to happen. Either sellers may opt to list at a higher price, right? But again...
So again, the buyer's paying.
But again, listing at a higher price doesn't mean the house will appraise for that, right? Like the house still has to appraise. Okay. So
yeah, but from $1 million to $2 million, I agree with you. Like the buyer in the 2 to 2.5s and higher, like appraisal doesn't come into play as much. Right?
As much. Fine.
Many of those buyers are purchasing in cash. They're getting a loan against their portfolio, stock portfolios.
Fair, but the house,
and they're willing to go like that buyer is different. The mindset's different. Their financials are very different than the buyer that's purchasing a $500,000 or $600,000 home. You agree on that?
Yeah.
All right.
So, okay. So they may opt to increase the price, or sellers may also give pushback on what they can negotiate, which is the real estate commission.
Yeah.
Right? So they may opt and say, I'm not paying a buyer's agent, or I will only pay a portion, or, maybe give the listing agent some pushback on what their commission is. Right? So that's what I think is going to happen, because in reality, that is a lot of money.
So you're saying it could affect the commission conversation between listing agent and seller.
Listing agent and seller, and
either their fee or the buyer
or the buyer's
agent's fee.
Right. They may say, look, I have to now inquire this extra 2%, 2.5%, whatever it is.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then I'm only willing to compensate a buyer's agent X amount, if anything at all, right? I think that could happen. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So my thoughts are this. One of three things can happen. Either there's no impact, right? We've seen that in the past where we think there's going to be an impact and all of a sudden there isn't. Or it could suppress inventory. Sellers are going to be less incentivized to want to sell their property, right? Or it could suppress, and by the way, if it does suppress inventory, prices will go higher in the luxury market. Or it could suppress buyer demand, because if prices do go up, if sellers are requesting the buyers to pay, right, by increasing their listing price, it could also suppress buyer demand, or it could suppress buyer demand in general because the buyer is saying, hey, wait, I'm not buying this $1.5 million home because when I decide to sell it in 10, 15 years, I have to pay the mansion tax as well. So I don't want
Yeah, but you can buy an $800,000 home and in 10 years or 5 years, it's going to be $1 million anyway.
Well,
so
we don't know that.
Okay.
But that's happened now during COVID. Like I love you COVID agents. I love the COVID agents.
No, but still, I mean, real estate tends to, I mean, isn't it technically an appreciating asset? So at some point, if you're buying a $900,000 or $950,000 house.
Technically, yes and no. Yes, it can. Of course, real estate can appreciate. And when we purchase real estate, we're obviously hoping that it does, right? But that doesn't mean it's going to appreciate in a short period of time that you own the property. It can appreciate, obviously, over long term. We don't know. Like a lot of things can happen, right? We could also see correction. We don't know. But yes, you're right. You could buy an $800,000 home and then obviously 5 years down the road,
it's worth $1 million.
If it appreciates, it could be worth $1 million.
Right.
Right. So these are things that I think sellers now and buyers are going to keep in the back of their mind once the real estate community does a good job at educating, both the buyer and the seller.
I think that's most important is obviously educating, right? Sellers and buyers, right? On what's happening in the current real estate market.
Correct. What I do believe, not to cut you off, but I do mean to cut you off. What I do believe is that in the commercial world, I think that this will have an adverse impact. In the residential world where there's so much volume of transactions, I don't think so. But, like in the apartment building space, like $10 million is nothing, right? Let's face it. Like that's nothing, right? What are you going to get for $10 million right now in the state of New Jersey? You're not going to get much, right? Packages between 50 to 70 units, where a lot of investment companies and a lot of folks have a lot of interest and demand for those type of apartment buildings. That's where I believe it's going to get affected. In fact, why don't you open up your fee calculator and calculate what's going to be the realty transfer fee on, say, $40 million,
well,
right?
It's 3%.
Well, just give me the actual number. The actual number. It's not 3%. It's not 3%. It's
3.5
plus the realty transfer fee. Right. So it's 3.5 plus the supplement, which that's supplemental to the realty transfer fee. So it's more like 4.4, 4.5. All right. So what did I say? What 30 million?
40 million? You said?
30 million. Do 30 million. Only 30 million because I have my friend who just put his apartment building on the market for 30 million. Right. And it's a 55 unit apartment building. And that's kind of average. That's where 55 to 65 units, that's where they're being listed at. Packages that are like 1 year old to 5 years old. Anything more than that. What is that?
Is that accurate?
No. Go to the fee.
I don't have that.
I'll go to it. So
I don't have the fee calculator.
If you just Google New Jersey.
Oh, you wanted me to do
transfer
it there. Oh.
Fee calculator. What is it going to cost? Let's see. So I said $30 million. How many zeros is that, Mel?
Too many. My other question is, do you think that this is going to be...
Wait. So if you're selling an apartment building for $30 million, you are going to incur as a seller $1,410,000 in the mansion tax plus the realty transfer fee collectively together. Okay. So and by the way, out of that 1.4, only $360,000 is actually realty transfer fee. The rest is mansion tax.
Yeah.
So 1.1 in mansion tax.
It's a lot.
So it could affect the decision of anybody wanting to put their package on the market, or it could simply suppress demand, or it could simply suppress inventory. Look, like anything else, we don't know what's going to happen until it actually happens. So it goes into effect July 10. We're not going to see the effects of this until probably, I would say, mid-September to mid-October, right? So that's when we're going to see whether or not this is going to impact the industry in itself, whether it's going to impact transactions, et cetera. Do I agree with it? No, I don't. Obviously, I never, as a consumer.
Well, hold on. No. Okay.
How long do you want me to hold on for?
No. So listen, I don't think that the buyer should be paying mansion tax, right? I think that the mansion tax should be on the seller.
But some people will disagree with that.
That's fine, right? And we're entitled to our own opinions.
Yeah. Like in some states, the buyer and the seller share that burden.
Fine, whatever it is. If they want to share it, okay. But I really don't think that the buyer should incur that cost. Okay. Altogether, right? However, I also think that increasing it based off of purchase price is a lot. Like, you keep it 1% across the board like it was, but they would never do that, right? The purpose of obviously increasing it was to...
Well, they need to generate revenue. And
correct. And that's...
they what do they say? I forget the number actually. There was an article that 1 out of 5 transactions are over $1 million in New Jersey, between residential and commercial. I don't know how accurate that is. I kind of think it's a little more. It's like, a little less rather. I think it's like 1 out of 7 or 1 out of 8. But they believe that they're going to generate $300+ million in revenue, and the state needed to do it, right? It's kind of why they voted yes for this. Here's how a bill works, right? A representative, whether in the Senate or an assemblyman, they propose a bill. It goes in front of what's called the General Assembly and Senate, the Senate and Budget Committee rather. They view it. They vote yes or no if they're going to put this forth in front of the General Assembly, which is the lower house, and the Senate, which is the upper house, basically the New Jersey legislators. They voted yes to bring forth the bill in front of them so they can vote on it. New Jersey legislation voted on it. They voted unanimously yes. From a budget perspective, if New Jersey is in a big deficit, or they believe that New Jersey next year is going to have a big deficit, do you believe, and look, and I'm going to propose this, right? You're a consumer, you're a homeowner. Would you rather them do this, or would you rather them share the tax burden throughout all property owners in New Jersey? Like, would you want to see a property tax increase, or would you rather the sellers of $1 million plus homes incur this fee? And I try to play devil's advocate all the time. I would say that this is better than if we were to go to every homeowner and say, hey, we need to increase your taxes by $1,000.
It's going to affect more.
Right.
Yeah, by doing that, you're going to affect much more lives,
Correct.
many more lives.
So in that sense, then I agree with it. Now, I don't agree that as consumers, as residents, we should be paying more money in anything, right? In anything, whether it's taxes, property taxes, state income tax, whatever the case may be. I don't. But I also know that there's a deficit, right? My only problem with this bill is that it does, not playing politics, but it does open up the idea that the buck doesn't stop here, that they can introduce other bills in the future, right? What happens in 5 or 10 years?
Well,
what happens in 15 years? Are they going to start taxing buyers under $1 million or sellers under $1 million?
Correct.
I don't know. We never know. That's my only issue with this, right? If they don't, great. But if they do, then at some point, consumers and residents of New Jersey have to say, hey guys, wait a minute. Isn't it better to audit these states' finances first before you propose a bill? Because it's always easier to say, hey, let's just increase taxes.
Right.
Right. That's easy.
That's their response for everything.
Yeah. I rather as a New Jersey resident and taxpayer to understand where everybody's tax dollars are going. So do an audit. I think that's better for the general masses in the state. But if they did that, which I hope they did, to confirm that there's no misappropriation of funds, then I am not so against the mansion tax, because you as the buyer still have a choice, right? And you as the seller still have a choice. Now, if you have to sell your house, you have to sell your house, right? But I also look at it like if you have a $3 million home, God bless you. You've done well for yourself in life. That's going to affect you a lot less than
the person who has
exactly the person that can only afford a $500,000.
Correct.
Right?
And now have to pay more money in property taxes.
Yeah.
Do you think that this bill is going to stay this way without getting amended for a long time? Or do you think there's a possibility of them amending it, in the next year, 2 years or something after they see the revenue come in?
They're not going to amend it. If the revenue's coming in, they're not going to amend it.
Ever.
They're going to keep it.
You don't think they'll ever amend it?
I don't think so. Unless there's a surplus in the future. But look, here's how it is, right? People complain for the first week or first 2 weeks, right? Temporary. And then the noise goes away.
And it becomes the norm.
There would be no reason for them to amend it, to be quite honest with you, in my opinion. But, as a real estate agent, so let's wear our realtor hat. What does that mean for your business? Again, no crystal ball. I don't know how it's going to impact a real estate agent's business. I do know that there has to be a conversation. As a listing agent, you're going to have that conversation now at a listing appointment. So as of July 10, when you go to a listing appointment and you're sitting down in front of a seller that owns a $1 million home, a $2 million, $3 million, that conversation needs to happen right there on the spot. Because if you don't, then you're being unethical, right? And obviously you want to educate the seller, let them know. Here's how I look at it. If a seller is calling a listing agent, it's because they need to sell, right? It's not that they're testing out the market. And I know there are some people that do test out the markets, but the vast majority of people that make a decision to sell their home outside of an investor, right? They need to sell the property. There's something crucial going on in their life, whether it's retirement, whether it's an illness, whatever the case may be, that forces them to make the decision on whether to sell their property. I don't think that this mansion tax is going to change their decision. Right now, if you're buying, $1.5 million home to later on sell 4 or 5 years down the road, I think that could influence your decision on buying, So, but as a real estate agent, I don't think it's going to affect your business. I think that it's just going to open up a 5-minute conversation about it. I think that most people that own $1 million home plus are very well aware of what's going on with the mansion tax. I'm sure that it's made headlines and they've read it. So I think they're not going to spend much time, having to have the conversation other than telling them, hey, this is how much you're going to have to pay for it, right? But let's talk about strategy on how you can recuperate most of that money or some of that money. I think that's the conversation that as a real estate agent, you really need to focus on is, hey, here's what we're going to do from a marketing standpoint to get you more money so that way you can recuperate this mansion tax. So that way it's less of a sting, in my opinion. That's what's going to happen because New Jersey market hasn't really changed much. I know, yes, inventory is a little bit higher right now. Absorption rates are a little bit higher. It's still a very strong seller's market. So what are your opinions as a real estate agent? Forget about now, because before we spoke about your perspective as a seller, and I only ask because you're selling your primary residence right now, very close to $1 million. But what's your perspective as a real estate agent that's going, I can't believe you're almost selling it for $1 million. But what's your perspective on the mansion tax as a listing agent? Because predominantly you're a listing agent now.
Yeah.
As of the past 2 years.
I just think that it's really important for agents to educate their sellers, right? And have these conversations and have them openly, right? And like I said before, they're just going to find a way to recoup that money, whether it's increasing the price, trying to negotiate things a little bit better. I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue as people think, or some people think. I just know that, having that conversation maybe with somebody who's selling a $3.5 million house, saying that, they have to pay a 3.5% fee.
4.4.
4.4.
Because it's realty transfer
Oh, yes.
fee.
Yes. Yeah.
Plus
Well, I'm just talking about
in addition.
In addition, right? I think that's kind of a hard pill to swallow, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, to your point, if you have to sell, what option do you have, right? It kind of is what it is. So I think the first couple of months, maybe like the first, 6 months, it's going to be a little weird, and a lot of conversation. But then after that, I think it's just going to be everybody's kind of
Back
used
to business.
Yeah, it's just, it is what it is, right?
And
we've
also,
seen a lot of changes in the industry already.
Yeah.
Right? Like just last summer when Governor Murphy passed his bill,
New Jersey
right?
Real Estate Consumer Protection Act.
Correct. In August 2024, there was a lot happening.
But that
right?
that wasn't state specific. Like this is state specific, right?
I know.
That was across the board. All 50 states.
Correct. But there was a lot of talking, right? A lot of moving parts and all of that, right? And now it's like, no big deal.
Yeah.
Right now everybody is used to it and it kind of...
And if you're a seller, the way I would... Like my mindset, if I was a seller right now, and let's say you have a $3.5, $4 million home or $2.5, $1 million home, the way I would think about it is, look how much appreciation you've gained also in the last 4 or 5 years. In many cases, some of those homeowners gained over $1 million in equity. Yeah. So, I probably would look at it from, look, my glass is half full. I'm grateful.
Right. I think it would be different to your point if they had made this change, let's say across the board, and did something that would affect,
Oh yeah. If this was across the board in every price range.
Yeah.
Easier pill to swallow as a seller. If you're under $1 million, and let's say it was 1%, right? I think that, all right, again, cost of doing business. But I don't think it would affect the market in general. Because look, if you have to move, you have to move. If you're a buyer, you have to buy. If you're a seller, and guess what? Here's the alternative, right? Landlords would take advantage and, they're like, oh, it's the cost of buying a home is more expensive. There's going to be more demand on the rental side. So we're just going to increase rents, right? So then, buying homes, not so bad at that point.
Yeah. Can we talk about though real quick? So there's actually two
I'm trying to talk to you less. Talk about what?
There's two things, right? So they have to be under contract by July 10th.
Which is in 2 days.
Right. Mm-hmm. And the second part of it is you have to the deed has to be recorded by November 15th.
But for what? Why don't you explain to someone who's watching this? What does that mean, the dates? July 10, November 15th?
Well, so I'm thinking about it like, okay, that means you have to have an executed contract where seller and buyer have signed. And I think they've gone through the attorney review period or no? So, is it just signed or gone through?
No, it's got to go under contract after the attorney review period.
So it has to go under contract, but the deed needs to be recorded.
So people can understand. Hold on. So if your property goes under contract after July 10, right? After July 10, offer is accepted, it goes into attorney review, but it goes under contract, meaning attorney review gets concluded on July 11th. The seller, unless agreed upon in the contract, the seller is responsible for the mansion tax if it's over $1 million. If you're under contract right now, the buyer is still responsible for the mansion tax. But now, if I am a buyer and I'm looking in that $1 million range,
you're gonna push.
I'm gonna tell my agent, look, we're interested in buying this home, but let's not make an offer right now, today. Let's wait until after July 10.
Right.
If they're aware of this.
But here's the other thing.
What's the November 15 date?
You have to record the deed. And here's the thing.
Well, for what? There's got to be a specific reason. Why are we recording the deed prior to November 15 for what? For the refund? Is that what it is?
No, I thought that was the two terms that they had to meet. Because think about, what if you're under contract July 9th, but what if you're buying a new construction home?
Oh, you're saying it's two parts.
It's two parts
to the exemption.
Correct.
Gotcha. So be under contract before July 10th and then close basically and have the deed recorded before November 15th. So
that poses an issue for new construction because suppose...
So you're still going to be the seller's going to be responsible. So if the seller goes under contract right now, new construction, right now, today, July 8th, right?
Yeah.
Which they make the deadline, but let's say the house is not going to be built and finished until December.
They're going to have to pay.
They're going to be responsible for
the mansion
tax. Got it.
Right. Yeah. So they have to meet there's two parts to that exemption, right?
So and July 10th, November 15th.
Correct. And the new construction market is where it's going to be affected the most because, again, you can be under contract right now.
Yeah.
But, seller that's building that new construction.
Yeah, so builders or the developers, they have to move fast.
Correct.
Right, because they have this in the back of their mind because if you were building this home and not taking this cost into account, not factoring it in, and especially if you're building, let's say, a $2.5 million home where it's 2.5%, right? And let's say your profit margin is, I don't know, 300, 400. this could be a huge hit to your profit margin. So they either are scrambling right now to get that thing finished, or they're going to be very upset, or they're going to try to renegotiate, which they're not going to be able to.
Yeah, but how's this going to, but the deed has to be recorded. So how's this going to play out, right? What if you close November 14th? What do you do then?
I walk that deed to the clerk.
Right.
Record it now, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's going to cause
So for
chaos
those, for those who don't know how this works, you can close, let's say, November 1st, and in some counties, right, they could take 3-4 weeks to record your deed.
Yeah, like Essex County is slow.
Yeah.
Right. So, there's that part of it too.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but on average, a lot of counties rather, because the county is responsible for recording the deed. A lot of counties record it within 2 to 3 weeks. But you're right. If you're closing very close to that deadline, that could pose a big problem. So if I'm a builder and I have this thing built, right, I'm doing an incentive, giving a buyer an incentive to close prior to, let's say, November 1st to give me enough time to record.
Here's another scenario.
Yeah.
How about this? What if you do have a new construction, right, and you're under contract right now, and the buyer is technically no. So you have a new construction, under contract right now.
Yeah.
Let's say your scheduled closing date was going to be November 30th.
Yeah.
At that point, who pays?
It's going to be the seller.
But before, it was always the buyer.
Yeah.
Right? So what if now I'm the builder and I say, oh, look, I'm ready. Can we close November 10th? What do you think the buyer is going to say? They're going to say, no, I want to stick to...
Yeah, but yes, but I think that a builder in that case will give some sort of financial incentive for them to close, right? Because the buyer was going to incur the mansion tax anyway. And by the way, the mansion tax is only 1%. It's not equivalent for the buyer. It's not going to be aligned with the new fee schedule.
Correct.
So if the buyer is still responsible, and let's say they were under contract before July 10th and they close prior to November 15 and it gets recorded prior to November 15, right? Their mansion tax is only 1%. Versus where the seller is going to incur a higher mansion tax. So if I am the seller, rationally and from a logical standpoint, right, it makes a lot of business sense for me to offer an incentive just to get the buyer to close early or on time, right? So that's what I would do. All right, so that's all I got for you guys. Mansion tax out there, if you're a real estate agent, if you're not aware of it, please do your homework, research it. If you are a homeowner, if you're a seller, you have to understand the fee schedule, especially anything above $1 million. Also in the commercial world, if you're an apartment building owner, or if you own shopping plazas, if you own triple net buildings, be aware, to factor this into your cost now. And if you're a real estate agent, look, you have to learn how to navigate through these conversations now with sellers, right? It's just part of how we do business. It's part of the territory. All right, guys. If you have not liked and subscribed, like my 6-year-old Addison says, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's not my YouTube channel, but it's a great YouTube channel.